a childhood memory that I've kept locked away. As I sit here considering the story I'm about to tell, I wonder if it constitutes as even worth telling. I've buried it deep in my mind as either a hallucination or a work of childhood imagination, but I still can't quite let it go. Until tonight, I've kept this to myself. After all, if even I'm not sure what to believe, who else would believe it? Have you ever thought about a memory in your life with such a sense of intensity that the said memory seems to detach itself from reality? What I mean to suggest is that, without deliberately trying to sound pretentious, there is a point in which the memories we have built of our lives leave our brain and enter into the world around us, maybe just privately in our diaries, or perhaps said to a close friend and relative. But it's at that point that the memory becomes something apart from reality as we know it. It's a syzygy of reality and fiction, a place where the two intersect and overlap. Maybe the memory required an embellishment for the story to be digested by its listeners, and in that, the story took its own form. A form that worked better for the sake of storytelling. That's how you might transition from hearing strange noises in your house one evening to telling your cousin that you truly saw a ghost lurking in your corridors. I think we're all more aware of this happening than we want to admit. After all, who would be interested in a story if it wasn't any good? I've wondered, though, if the opposite might occur. Reality begets a fiction, but that fiction, in its act of repetition, eventually overrides reality to such a degree that the two become one and the same. You're no longer lying, but rather telling something you've taught yourself to be the truth. Years have passed since the story I'm about to tell, and I hope it's just that, a story. A lie my brain concocted to explain what it might not have been able to comprehend. My mother's been a real estate agent for as long as I can remember, and for a good chunk of my childhood was a single mother. While she eventually married when I was 10, prior to that she would often take me to her various real estate events. While she had no problem affording a babysitter, there were times where she had to be on site with little notice to show houses to prospective buyers, and with no faster alternative, I was brought along. I didn't mind all that much, as I liked the opportunity for exploration and discovery. Some of the houses I gladly explored with a sense of awe and wonder. The city I grew up in, located square in the Rust Belt, had been caught in the steel mill collapse of the 70s. Many people woke up, got dressed, drove to work, and discovered that they didn't have a job anymore. As such, even the nicest parts of the city became abandoned shells of what they once were. Families fled elsewhere in desperation, leaving behind the neighborhoods and homes they had spent their entire lives. As such, there were some very old, but certainly beautiful homes waiting to be sold for the right price, and of course, for my mom to collect the commission for. Looking back on what happened that day, I'd like to think that in our present day and age, something like this simply could not happen. But it was the mid 80s back then, and everything was, if I had to hazard a guess, a little less strict on standards and policy. During the autumn one year when I was 7, my mom dragged me along to an open house she was overseeing in the historical district of the city. While I never had an eye for home decor, feng shui, or anything in between, I still remember the house's monstrous appearance compared to my small stature. It was 3 stories tall, and it looked down on me with a foreboding gaze. It had a faded and thinning layer of yellow paint running across it, while the window paneling was an evergreen hue. The roof had a number of light cracks running across, and the yard itself was barren save for a few aged trees. While I knew that some homes were 2 stories, I had no conception of houses with a third. Sure, a skyscraper could have a third, fourth, or even 70th floor, but not a house. After seeing that highest window, I remember asking my mom as we walked up and her telling me that lots of older homes had 3 floors. I knew that I would need to see it for myself. As my mom toured prospective buyers throughout the house, I wandered around in awe of this sweeping, giant structure. Most of the rooms weren't furnished, adding to the house's illusion of size. It had the makings of a home with a vast hidden history: the large cellar with the ancient furnace, the candlelit lamps that had been refitted with light bulbs, and the chandelier-guarded foyer with a winding staircase to the second floor all seemed to indicate a home that had been frozen in time. Of course, knowing that a third floor existed, I became determined to discover it. I moved through the second floor hall, opening door after door, but found no stairs. I was certain I had checked every possible location for a flight of stairs in the hallway. short of the small closet door at the beginning of the hall. The door was quite tiny in comparison to the other doors in the hall. The bedroom door next to it had a good foot, perhaps even two, on it. So much so that in my initial exploration, my brain did not register the idea that a flight of stairs could be concealed behind it. With no other place to look, I slowly opened the closet door and, as you might have guessed, found a very cramped flight of stairs concealed behind. They arced leftward behind the door, and as I peeked my head around, I remember the seemingly dangerous intent of the doorway at the top of the stairs, looking down at me, nearly begging me to enter and discover what mysteries lied beyond. Like most kids, I was willing to persevere up the long climb of the stairs simply for a cheap pop of answered curiosity. For what it's worth, though I have been describing this as a full third story, as I arrived to the room it became obvious that this was nothing more than a glorified attic. The floor was wooden, and cobwebs coated the corners, as did spiders on the walls. As I stepped forward, a small cloud of dust formed around my feet. The room was empty, save for a single light fixture on the wall and a window overlooking the yard and the street. There was a small closet with a door no larger than the one that lead up the steps, though this door seemed far older than any other in the house. The wood looked nearly rotten. I attempted to open it, but it was locked. For those unaware, homes like these often used old skeleton keys for doors like this. While my mom may have had one, I certainly didn't. After a few half-hearted attempts to brute force my way through, I turned my attention to my original goal of seeing the view of the nearby window. I peered slowly out the window, looking down onto the road below. No matter how high up I've been since, whether it was on a skyscraper or otherwise, nothing will seem as high as when I looked out that window. If you would have asked me then, I very well might have said I was in outer space, looking across the top of building after building that spread across the neighborhood. I stood there for a good 5 or 6 minutes, dumbfounded in awe of the view beneath me. I don't know the exact order of what happened next. Sometimes I seem to remember turning and looking at the door, and then the shaking and yelling to start. Other times I was looking out the window and I heard it. Either way, it shook me enough that my memories of it remain unclear. The closet door began to shake and a voice almost immediately followed. Hello, hello, is anyone out there? Please help me. I turned my attention to it immediately. It was a male voice, not particularly deep, but certainly an adult. I'm trapped. Somebody please let me out. I stood there momentarily listening to the closet muffled words I was hearing, trying to process what was occurring. While our natural urge, as adults, would be to immediately react, as a kid I was more confused and, to be honest, a bit frightened. There was a stranger behind that door after all. Eventually, I mustered out a pretty meager response. Hello? Hey mister, I'm out here. I suppose I was more curious than I was urgent to help. In my defense, I think I hadn't quite developed proper protocol for reacting to someone being trapped in a closet yet. He quickly, almost immediately responded. Oh, thank goodness. Can you unlock this door? I managed to lock myself in. Silly me, let me out, please. Obediently, I walked over and began to pull on the doorknob. Like earlier, nothing happened. It was sealed pretty tight, certainly tight enough that a kid my size lacked the strength for. The man kept crying out in command, each a little more intense than the last. Pull, please, help me. Don't you want to help me out of here? Don't you want to let me out? I could feel the man's breath on me through the keyhole on the door. My child brain was caught between two competing urges, to help someone in need and to not talk to a stranger. I paused for a moment, considering the right course of action. The man didn't take too kindly to that, I guess. I said now, I want out now. I don't want in here anymore. I'm tired of being in here of all places. Something had changed. His voice intensified. There may still have been fear there, but I could now hear aggression and command in his deepening voice. Unsure but still wanting to help, I tried once again to pull on the door. Try as I might, but it refused to budge. Let me out. Please. I want to escape this cage. Let me out. Get me out. Away. Help me escape. Evacuate this place. You want me to escape, right? I want to be out in the world where the kids run free. Kids like you. Even though I was just a child, I could detect that something, whatever the case may be, was off about the situation. I no longer heard the voice of a frightened soul. Instead, I heard the ominous commands of a caged rat shrieking for freedom. I stopped once more, feeling more uncertain than ever that opening this door was the correct course of action. The man's pleas turned to demands, and any sense of helplessness in his voice disappeared, leaving only a sinister tone of domination and a hint of insanity. Get me out of here, you little shit. I'm stuck. I'm sick of being in here. I've been in here a long time. And I want out. Nothing wrong with that, you know. Nothing wrong with that. I didn't appreciate the swear. In my youngster logic, I thought my mom would get angry at me if somebody around me said a bad word. Just as soon as I stopped again in concern, did the door begin shaking with a violent rhythm, followed by a loud thud, thud, thud. Over and over it went. So did the man's voice. Why have you stopped? Don't you want me out, little boy? I've been cooped, cranked, coddled, and crinkled up in here for far too much too long, I long. And I want to show you what my home, my house, my humble abode looks like. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, yes, to see where I live and where I'm from, you certainly want to see, don't you, don't you, don't you? Come in, come in. I was frozen in fear for a moment. Why, I thought, would this man want me now to come in? Moreover, it puzzled me as to why he cried for help for the first 5 or 6 minutes of me being in the room. A sensation of fear overcame me, and it became clear then I needed to leave before I abruptly looked down. To my shock, I noticed, at the bottom edge of my eyes, something moving between the gap between the floor and the closet door. Four little gray masses inched their way forward, followed by a fifth, a hand, a hand that inched toward me, with the inquisitive deliberateness of a spider, coming within a centimeter of my shoe. I looked down at the now protruding arm. It wasn't like any arm I've seen. Parts of it were a deep, dark, and as I look back now, rotten. I was frozen in fear, uncertain how to react, and completely unable to process my surroundings. The index finger rose up to touch my shoe before I suddenly heard another voice from down the steps. Honey, are you up there? Relieved at the sound of my mother's voice, I quickly darted back down the steps. The sound of shaking behind me, the sound of violent yelling carrying down the steps. I grabbed a hold of one of her legs. What's wrong? Nearly crying, but too proud to show her, I told her that a man was trapped in the closet and that he wanted to escape. I told her that he was nasty and that he shouldn't be let out. She laughed. Oh, really? Well, I'll go take a look for myself. She proceeded up the small staircase, kneeling slightly so that she would fit through the thin corridor. I think more to quell my worries than out of any pressing concern. As she proceeded undaunted up the steps, I fearfully found another room that a prospective buyer was looking at, and feeling a bit unnerved, stood idly by him underneath his puzzled gaze. Only moments had passed when we both heard a blood-curdling scream coming from the third floor. My mother's. The buyer accordingly darted towards the screams. They were eventually accompanied by his. What followed is a bit of a blur. My mom promptly came down the steps, quickly grabbed me, and we darted out to the front lawn. The buyer ran to a neighbor's house, frantically pounding on the door, demanding to use a phone. Soon, there was a sea of police in the house, and out in the yard, a sea of neighbors and onlookers. I remember being asked a lot of questions about the room upstairs. I told them my story, about the man that asked me to help him out, but I know the officers kindly laughed most of it off. It wasn't for another decade that I was told what happened when my mom went into that room. You see, when my mom, who noticed a foul odor when she entered the room and saw something sticking out from underneath the closet door, finally managed to budge it open, out fell the stinking, rotting corpse of an unidentified man. My mom said it was almost as if the man had died kneeling against the closet door. The police identified him as an older man, probably in his late 60s or early 70s, and were absolutely flabbergasted as to how it could have happened without being detected. I've thought it through a few times myself. How did a body find itself in an old abandoned property like that? Your guess is as good as mine. My mom has mentioned that the house was a bank foreclosure. Either the bank did a terrible job of inspecting the house or somebody broke in and dumped the corpse. Either way, from what I heard, it was very obvious that the man hadn't died recently. While the police did tell me, Mom, that they were planning on contacting the previous owners, I don't know what happened next. A few times I've looked through backlogs of old local newspapers and even done a few web searches, but it seems as if the story ends there. Over the years since then, I've thought long and hard about what happened that day. I know that memories aren't always what we think they are. I know that kids see the world in a different light. Still, the image, the hand creeping underneath the door, inviting me past the veil to see whatever lied beyond, hasn't spared me even a day of passing through my mind. I still manage to sleep at night because I've told myself that it was my overactive imagination, that my 7-year-old brain saw something, perhaps the fingers of the corpse, sticking out underneath the door, and I formed some sort of narrative around it.